Well, what's up, everybody? We're here again, a little Film Club review for you guys. Did anybody watch this week's movie? Did you watch Cane River? Check this out. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but I'll tell you a little bit about this movie. Did you know that Cane River came out in 1982 and then was unseen for almost 40 years? Did you know that? I sure didn't. I found out when I decided to watch this movie. We've been going through the Black Voices playlist on Criterion Channel, and when I saw that this film had been added, Cane River, I was curious. I wanted to check it out, and then I was really glad we picked it because I gotta say, man, this was a very lovely romance. I don't want to assume that you know everything about this movie, so I should tell you some of the most interesting parts about it, which is the history of how it went unseen for so long. There is a man, may he rest in peace. His name's Horace Jenkins, Horace B. Jenkins. And he was the director, writer, and producer of this film, Cane River. And upon completion, before it could be distributed, he died of a heart attack. And now we only have this one movie of his. The shame is that the film was done. It I may get this wrong, but it premiered like twice in where was it? They said like Minneapolis or something. It had like very few showings in 1982. Mr. Jenkins died, and then the film never got distributed. And to add insult to injury, all copies of the film were lost. It was just gone. And so I never knew about this movie. Maybe you did, but apparently it's one of those titles that's like lore. It's folklore at this point. Like no one thought it existed anymore. And in 2013, you should look this up because I just found this stuff out myself. It was very interesting to find out. But a negative of the film turned up in 2013, and the beautiful people at Oscilloscope and I should have written it down. You know what? You should look this up on your own anyways, and you'll find out that there were these two groups of people that took the negative of this film. Miraculously, we found this negative, and they meticulously restored the film so that it could be released. It premiered at a 2018 festival in New Orleans to some critical acclaim, and then it was going to finally have its big distribution February of this year, 2020. And so February 2020 was playing in a couple movie theaters, but as you very well know if you're watching this, all the movie theaters closed down and nobody got to watch anything, especially those who had finally gotten an opportunity to watch Cane River, opportunity taken away. So, all of that to say that in March or April, Cane River got put on the Criterion Channel. And so now, for the first time since 1982, we are able to watch this film that was not only written, directed, and produced by one man, who happens to be a black man, but this film used an all-black crew, has an all-black cast, and was funded by all-black patronage. So in the world of independent American cinema, this is a very cool situation, and it's a shame that it went this long unseen. Let me tell you a little bit about the movie. We deal with two different people, a guy and a girl, Peter and Maria. Peter's on his way back home to Cane River, Louisiana. He was a big college football star. He's got an NFL offer that he turns down. And throughout the picture, we find out kind of what happened there. And I don't want to spoil everything. I just want to give you a little setup so that if you haven't watched it, you'll go and check it out. But so our man Peter's home. Everybody's excited that he's home. And his family's got this big, beautiful property, and he rides horses, and he's quitting football. He's going to work on the farm with his dad and write poetry. He goes to visit the house that is part of his heritage, this plantation home called Melrose, and it is his family home. I mean, he didn't grow up there, but it's his lineage. It's their home, and now it's like a museum that you can go get tours from. Bumps into a tour guide there by the name of Maria. I wrote down her last name here somewhere. Mathis, like Johnny Mathis, but not related. But yes, he meets Maria, and then what we get to see is a beautiful romance play out between these two people. There is a Romeo and Juliet element to this story. He being a Metois is what's called a Creole, and Maria's family is not crazy about her seeing this guy. And one thing I definitely don't know anything about is this notion of colorism within the black community. If you want to check it out without checking out this movie, by all means you can go and Google that term. But it is kind of just in layman's terms for our movie and what we're talking about. It is a Montague Capulet sort of situation. They're not pumped about these people being together. However, the nice thing that this film does is kind of unravel where some of those hatreds come from and why some of them may be misguided and based off of false information or information that's kind of been telephoned improperly over the years, and now you got two groups of people who are having issues with each other. I'm really simplifying this. I'm really oversimplifying this. But it is this beautiful romance, and one thing that I found to be really nice just in the conversation of representation on film. There's something that it sucks that this is not something that we get to see all the time, but there's something nice about watching two young people fall in love with each other in a short amount of time. Pretty much everyone on screen that you see is black, and yet no one ever has a gun. No one ever has to get in a fight. No one's on drugs. What a concept. We're watching people deal with people stuff. Yes, of course, or not of course, but in this situation, in this film, there is a social commentary element of in particular, we're talking about black land ownership. It's a really kind of amazing thing that is riding underneath this romance that we get to watch bud throughout the film. I would be totally remiss if I don't mention my two guys, Leroy or just Roy, I don't know which one, Glover, and Philip Manuel. These are the two guys who have all that killer music in this movie. Afterwards, I went to look up the soundtrack, and it doesn't exist because this movie barely exists. It's just finally come out from under a rock, so maybe soon we'll be able to listen to this killer soundtrack because it's just that perfectly wonderful 80s R&B, like slow jams and stuff. Like, there's a ton of those in this movie, and there's some really good just like funky jams in this movie. And I found out there's on the Criterion channel, there's a fantastic, it says it's an introduction, but they do have some spoilers in there, so watch it after the movie. But you get to see the two leads in 2020 talking about making this movie and working with Horace and how it never came out and how, you know, both of their careers basically like never happened for them in the way that they thought they might because their star vehicle never left the ground. But Philip Manuel is a local New Orleans singer who they hired, who Horace Jenkins hired to do the vocal songs in the movie. And most of them, I guess, were all already existing songs, and then one of them was written and recorded for the film. And every time a song came on, I was just like, this movie is great! I love this soundtrack so much! So, yeah, I mean, I'm really hoping that they can, now that the movie is out, and hopefully as more and more people discover it, maybe there'll be a higher demand for the soundtrack, and I won't be the only person who wants to drive down the street listening to this killer music from Cane River. But yeah, I mean, it is such a, I don't really have much more to say. I just really am glad that we watched it, and I hope you did check it out. And if you haven't, it is available for rent if you don't have a subscription to the Criterion channel. I did see that it's on iTunes, and I assume it's probably on Amazon as well. But it is this recently unearthed diamond in the rough. And I will say, too, that like it is not a perfect movie by any means. I mean, there's some criticism maybe you could find within the acting performances. The cinematography isn't like particularly mind-blowing. Everything is captured and the story happens beautifully. It's like it has this wonderful like kind of DIY feel to it, and yet it never feels cheap, which I really admire, because it's hard to just kind of get a camera and make up shit. Oh my God, speaking of which, there's this great scene between Maria and her mother towards the end of the film where her mom is really not into her being with Peter. And in this little interview that I watched with the two leads talking about it afterwards, Horace realized, I guess, in some rough cut or something, he was like, shit, we need a scene between you and your mom. And so they get them in a room together, and Horace was like, there's no script, you guys just go for it. And I didn't know that while I was watching it, but while I was watching it, I was like, damn, this scene is amazing. This is a really good scene. And so then when I found out the whole thing was improvised, I was like, excuse me? Arguably the most dramatic scene in the film was just they totally winged it in like one take. It's crazy. So it's, the movie I think stands on its own two legs mostly from this beautiful romance that these two totally unknown leads, they carry this whole movie, and they have a very believable, very equal relationship on screen. I really appreciate that, she's trying to go to school, she's trying to go to college. She doesn't want to get tied down and just make babies and take care of the house. So I thought that was kind of a pretty progressive female character for a independent 1980s film. But yeah, there's so many reasons why you should watch this movie. But if you just need one, I would say the music. You should check it out for that. But yeah, like I said, it's on Criterion Channel. You can rent it if you do not have a subscription. If you don't have a subscription to Criterion Channel, you really should get one. I'm finding that every time I watch something on there, it's usually something I've never heard of or something that I know, like, oh shit, I should have seen that by now. And every time, I'm always feeling so blessed because then they have all the special features available to you. It's like, oh, you want to watch the commentary? Click. Oh, you want to watch this interview? Click. There's so much there. No, they don't pay me to say this. I just really think that you should know about it. Anyway, Cane River, watch it. It's a blast. And we're gonna have another pick coming tomorrow. I know I was kind of lagging a little bit this week. I've been moving around. You don't need to know all that. But oh yeah, and I shaved my head. This is all old news at this point. You've been talking. I've been talking for 12 minutes. I'll leave you alone. All right. I'll see you soon. We'll have another pick, and we'll do this again. Maybe we'll be outside. Maybe we'll be inside. Groot will be there no matter what. Love y'all.
Rare and fantastic. Its raw subject matter echoes in films of the present day, says RogerEbert.com. Cane River is a work of visionary artistry and progressive imagination, says The New Yorker. Nearly 4 decades after it was made, Cane River is available to audiences for the first time in an all-new, loving restoration. Cane River.